sharing our stories connects us. Listen and be connected. Join us for the conversation meeting weekly at the intersection of community and culture. Hosted by Mario Nunez and Joe King Carter. And Joe King Carter. And doesn't that sound good? Hi, everybody. It's Wednesday. It's your hump day. It's the hump hour on the humpiest hump day of all. That's Wednesday. And if you're listening, it's WMNF 88.5 radio right here in Tampa. You might be listening on WMNF.org from wherever you may be, and we certainly hope that you are. I'm one of you two hosts. I'm Mario Nunez, and I'm seated alongside my able broadcast partner. I almost got that out, Joe, without fumbling.
That was good. That was good.
I almost got it out.
Yeah.
Introduce yourself, sir.
Joe the Carter Man.
Joe the Carter Man. Joe King Carter.
Yeah.
Joe King Carter, who's been sitting alongside me since... How long have we been doing this show now, Joe?
Since 1961.
That's not true. That's not true at all.
Seems like that.
Yeah, it does. At times it does. But this morning it might be. But
we've been here a while.
Since June of last year. I think we started in the summer. So we're coming up on our year.
And what does that mean?
Well, we're coming up on our year anniversary.
But it also means that we're a relatively new show here.
Yes, we are.
And what does that mean?
That means that we're still building our audience, Joey. We're still building our audience. We're doing it a myriad of ways. We're doing it on Facebook Live. We're doing it here through the WMNF audience base.
Absolutely.
Our broadcast signal goes out to about 7 counties. There's a lot of people that have the opportunity to listen to us.
Yes, we're not Tampa-centric, even though we are Tampa lovers.
And here.
Because
let me ring a bell on that.
We love all these places around us, but also that audience can vote to support and make sure that we stay on the air by helping us with the last little bit of our fundraising goal that we
I teed that right up for you, Joey. So why don't you share with everybody what our goal is and what we need?
Well, we need about maybe 300
just a tick under $300.
Yeah, a little bit under.
And we're coming up on the deadline.
Very close.
We're coming up on the deadline.
We're coming up on a deadline.
Yeah. So we
once that deadline's in place, it'll be like the great iron door has closed upon us.
Oh no!
So we must make that amount.
Okay.
So please, ladies and gentlemen, if you're out there and you're supporting us, give us a little love, give us a little money. And at this place, at this point, with this closeness, $10, $15, or $20 could make a huge difference. And if somebody out there has $250, $300 laying around, maybe under the sofa cushion, bring it in.
So let me go ahead and just mention the names that have done such a great job of getting us this close to our goal. It's Patricia, it's Nicholas, it's Marvin, it's Carol, it's Manuel, or Manny as we know him, Alex, Mike, Jeremy, Tamara, or Tamara, which it could be. And we have Beverly, we have Joseph, and 2 from the Anonymous family. Anonymous, I believe that's how you say that word. Anonymous, because that's how our president says it, because he can't say anything right.
Yeah.
All right, so listen, $300 all we need, so please, give until it hurts, and when it hurts, give a little more.
And know that we love you for it. We love you. We love you. We love you.
We love doing this show, and I would hate for us to get papao or to be put in a timeout because we don't make our goal, because, it doesn't take much. There are people, it's just like the major leagues, Joe. It's like the big leagues. And then, you got somebody in AAA that's, raring for your job.
That's right.
So if we fall a little bit short,
that's right.
It's a problem.
There's somebody right back there.
They're right. They're
coming
chomping
right
at
up.
Our heels, brother.
That's right.
So that's a great segue, because our guest today is spectacular. I think you're going to I believe you're going to enjoy meeting her and hearing about her story. And we know this about her. She's from Second City. She's from Chi-Town.
Wow.
And we may have to talk a little bit of Chicago Cubs or White Sox, depending on what part of town she grew up in. But Joe, why don't you introduce our guest today?
Well, I'm excited. I'm really excited because I will, for the sake of clarity and visibility, I've connected with something that Liz had sent us, a podcast she was on. I was listening to this thinking, how many things could I have in common with somebody who I have so little in common with?
There you go.
And what this means is that all humans have things in common.
That's
and it's
perfect.
only when the narrative is shared that you find that out. But I'm very excited because Liz...
Marcucci?
Marcucci.
Say it, baby. Say it proud.
Liz Marcucci Liz Marcucci.
It's as Italian as it gets.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Is with us, and her story and her life is inspiring. So, welcome, Liz.
Ciao.
Ciao, she
Ciao,
says.
Bella. Ciao, Bella.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here today,
I'm
Liz.
happy to be here.
With a big smile on her
Great
face.
smile on her face.
So what we do here is a little bit different than other shows, which are many of which are wonderfully topic driven. As Midpoint was earlier today, it was just wonderful to listen to. We will obviously have to talk about topics because that's the nature of life, but we like to get into the personal narrative. So why don't we start with where you grew up and what that situation was like?
Yeah, I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago in Elmhurst, Illinois. So not the South Side, not the North Side. I am a Sox fan.
There you go. All right now.
Everyone else in my family was Cubs.
Tony La Russa?
Yeah. I saw Frank Thomas when I was walking to school once.
The Big Hurt. How big was he?
Big.
Huge.
Even in his car. And I waved him down. I think I must have been 8 years old. Frank on the side of the road. And he just gave me a little wave and kept going. It made my day.
Of course.
But really, I mean, the thing that I talk the most about and that I resonate the most with is growing up as somebody who had a birth defect and a physical disability. And I've had 17 operations in my life. I had 9 before the age of 12. And then I've had subsequent operations after that. And so, I say I have an inner firefly spirit. I never let it get me down. I don't think I learned that there was anything wrong with me until I was about 7 when
It was just the norm.
Yeah, it was just the norm. Some kids saw me taking my leg braces off, like Forrest Gump bore, and I was putting them in my locker. And he goes, "What are those?" And I go, "What do you mean, what are those?" And he's like, "What are those?" And I was, "Doesn't everybody wear these?" So I was just like blissfully oblivious.
Blissfully oblivious. So let's before we leave that, you have siblings?
Yeah, I have 2 older brothers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Much older? Close?
5 and 7 years.
So you were kind of on your own.
Yes.
You're more like in the profile, you're more like an only child.
Or like I was. I have 2 older brothers that were 7 and 9 years older.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of a distant
Yeah.
They were around a lot, and they were really good older brothers, but I think when you have a little sister with a disability, you can't mess with her the same way.
True.
So they
You
were
were protected a little bit.
they were much sweeter to me, and they were always there for me. They're really wonderful. They were wonderful brothers to grow up with.
So I was an only child, so we're the 3 of us are in kind of a little club. Let me ask you this. The aspect of your health and disabilities as a child, you're sort of describing it as I was oblivious. What about the parts of it that made you... Was there trauma connected there for you? I mean, obviously there must be, but...
the bullying is relentless when you're different,
Right.
No. It's okay. Everything's fine here.
Everything's great. The bullying is relentless. And
Right.
I just remember wanting to participate in things in my soul or energetically that my physical body couldn't do.
Right.
So that creates a bit of a dissonance of I want to be able to do these things. I want to be able to express
should
myself.
be able to do
I
these
should
things.
be able to, but I physically cannot. And so
Right.
it does make you in some ways, I would say, feel a little trapped within your own within your own skeleton.
Right.
Yeah.
And trapped can also lead to being different.
Yes.
And different can lead to being special.
Yes. Yeah. But I was provided the opportunity at a young age to spend a lot of time alone, and I used that time to be creative. So I used my imagination. I got into writing. I would write fiction stories constantly about faraway places or people I wanted to be or ways I wanted to see the world. And I was very introspective, and I think that gave me a really determined and resilient sense of self to be able to face the rest of my life with.
And you were in complete control of that. That was the nice
Yeah.
part. You controlled the narrative.
Yeah.
You were the storyteller. You were telling your own story in your very own unique way. Right. And I think, because listening to the same podcast you did, Joey, when you have that perspective, at first it might be a challenge to say, how do I fit in? Where do I fit in? But then after a while, you start to kind of grow into it and gain your own confidence to the point where, that special light comes from within and
Yes.
Am I making myself clear?
Yeah. I think the other aspect that just dawned on me too is that I had the gift of being an observer. You know, there was a lot I had to observe and notice, but what grew from that was a love for people, you know, and I would be in the hospital going through these really difficult experiences and surgeries, and there were certain nurses that I could watch them, you know, I could observe the way that they were interacting with all the other patients, and I think I developed a love for people that show up with a desire to help and to see others, like genuinely, truly
To be
see
seen.
them.
Yes, see and be seen.
Yeah, some elements, certainly some elements definitely of what you're describing is exactly how I grew up.
Yeah.
And it used to be a joke among people saying, oh, you act like you must have spent too much time alone as a kid, as though this is a negative. I wonder if that's really a negative. I think it could be a positive in a lot of ways. So this thing of being an observer of people is an interesting, it might be a protection, kind of a distance.
A lot of writers, we know this, a lot of actors, a lot of people that gravitate towards the arts in that regard, either only children or spend a lot of time with themselves in their rooms, creating their own narratives.
Yes.
You know, this is how it all begins, because the wellspring has to come from within, right? That's where the talent grows. And you're one talented lady, because we've seen you work before this.
Yes.
So.
So you're going through this childhood and you're going through your teenage years.
Yeah.
Probably not easy in this regard.
Oh no, and I also had like acne and a bad perm, and I was overweight, and you know, it just was like, if it could go wrong, it would.
It did. And you know,
I don't want, I'll stop short of thinking, as you're describing that, I'm thinking the ugly duckling, but we all know how that story ended up.
I totally was.
That story ended up pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you also, people like this, and I'm going to include myself, but, you know, you develop a sense of humor. Mm-hmm. Your sense of humor really gets developed.
Yeah.
Because you almost have to laugh at the situation.
Yeah.
And laugh at yourself. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And an internal sense of just resistance, you know? Like,
Right.
I see the way the world sees me, but I'm going to have the bravery and the courage to just be myself regardless.
That's awesome.
So,
That's
I was
awesome.
a weirdo. I still am, and I love it.
And embrace all the weirdness, baby.
Let's hear it for the weirdos.
Yeah, let's ring a bell for weirdos.
So you go through high school and you're going through this, and then what happens? You go off to school.
Yep, I went off to college. My dad was diagnosed with cancer my freshman year of college, so I spent most of my college years kind of going home, trying to balance the difference between I'm in college and I'm studying and I'm preparing for my future, and I'm also preparing for my future without my father. And so that was, you know, I think I drove home
And
every
you're
other
18,
weekend.
19 years old.
Yeah, I drove home every other weekend, or I flew home back in the day before, you know, the TSA at the Columbus airport used to mess with me. And one time I showed up for my flight, you know, a red eye, and I'm walking up to and they closed the gates on me, and they're like, I'm so sorry, the airport's closed. But they knew me because I flew home
All the
every
time.
other weekend. So
Right.
they recognized me, and they used to mess with me.
They opened the gate back up and said, come on, Liz,
Yeah.
come on.
And at this point in your life, the thing that we're going to end up talking a great deal about, which is improv and those kinds of things, the arts, wasn't happening yet.
Oh, no.
No. What was happening for you then?
Just trying to survive, really. You know, I got through college. I ended up getting married. I moved to Colorado. I explored that life. I got into special education and adaptive recreation. I really love advocacy and outreach work and working with the disability community. So I spent a lot of my time sort of giving back to others. Purpose-driven work means a lot to me. So, yeah.
Yeah. And so you're in Colorado.
Yep.
We end up divorced.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But not, I spent 11 years married to my ex-husband.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so you're working with, what are you doing to sort of generate your income? What's
Yeah,
not that that's your avocation or vocation, but
Well, I mean, to be honest, I really wasn't very well during that time. And I ended up having a spinal fusion surgery that went wrong. And so I had been working in special education, and unfortunately, it was too physically demanding for me. So my ex-husband was wonderful in the sense that he created an environment that allowed me to heal my body, and he was okay taking care of us while I did that. And then I got into adaptive recreation, which is sports for people with physical disabilities. And we had opportunities for like whitewater rafting and rock climbing and kayaking and adventure sports.
That Colorado lifestyle.
Yeah, it was super fun. And then I got cancer.
oh
You know,
Liz.
this is the point of the show.
know,
and
wow.
when I'm just going to inject this into the conversation, which is a great name for a radio show, by the way. You know, if it weren't for bad luck, my love, you would have had no luck at all.
So I used to like to say to my parents when these things would happen sometimes, or I felt like things were piling on, I'd go, you two had no business procreating.
Thanks, guys.
And at one point, my mom...
Great double helix here.
At one point, my mom looked at me and she's like, well, you were in an accident.
Oh,
Mercy. I almost reached
Well,
for the bell, but I stopped
many of us
short.
are accidents,
It was a
by the
cute-
way.
It's
Yeah.
a cute joke. I love my mother.
Yeah. So, okay, now wait a minute. Let's back up a little bit. You're working with special abilities or disabilities, however you want to call
Yeah.
that, and athletics and sports and that kind of physical
Yeah.
stuff.
Activity, yeah.
While you have the need for spinal fusion.
Yes, yeah.
How does that work?
Elaborate on that.
I know. I was born kind of with a broken spine, and it got to the point where I couldn't even brush my teeth without almost being in tears. I couldn't sleep, and so anyway, they had to go in and remove vertebrae, and they put titanium and rods, and they kind of fused my spine together. But the surgeon messed up, and so I had to go back in a week later to have it redone, and she ended up causing permanent nerve damage in my right leg from her mistake. But you know, you don't let stuff stop you.
No.
It's, you
It's
just
a temporary.
you find a way.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's
absolutely.
There's so many ways to achieve things in life.
As
Yeah.
one of our guests said 2 weeks ago, you find a way out of no way.
Yes.
And that has stuck with me, and I've been saying that to myself over and over again because so many times we come up against that in our day-to-day lives. No way, but you've got to find a way out of no way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it seems like you have been doing that pretty much from the beginning,
Yeah.
which has built you up to being who you are.
I say that I'm so grateful to be born the way I was because I don't know any different. Had I had full abilities and full capability my whole life, and then something happened and that was taken away from me, that's a whole nother thing you have to grieve. So I was just born this way. It's who I am. Bring it on or don't. I've had enough.
And you have sort of, I'd call it anti-defeated energy.
Yeah.
It's of course, one of those great phrases is the teacher appears when the student is ready. And what we all come to realize as we get older, but it sounds like you got a big dose of it early on.
A woman-sized dose as a child.
Yeah, is that it is in actuality the things that happen to us that are not pleasant, that are not positive, are the things that grow us.
That's
the
where
most.
you grow.
That's where growth comes from,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I'm stating the obvious, but maybe I'm not for some people, because what happens is we get caught up in the negative and we start becoming defeated and we say, woe is me. And I understand that. But that's your moment to pay attention.
Well, that's what they say about in the parlance of athletics, that you learn more from a loss than you do from a victory. And to that, let me just say that for a lot of years, the Cubs fans knew a little bit about that. You know what I mean?
Yep,
Right.
so did the White
So
Sox.
did the White
and
Sox.
The
So-
Blackhawks and the Bears.
So, the Bears.
Yeah.
But and the Bears are there again because it's, they had that one season, one magical season. But let me just say, and you didn't know this about me, Liz, unless I told you earlier and I forgot. But I lived in Chicago for a year.
I didn't know.
Yeah. So in '84.
I was born.
Hello. So the first year of your life, I was in Chicago. Sally and I were in Chicago, 400 West Berry. So between Lakeshore Drive and Broadway, Diversey and what was the name of the 77 bus? Oh my goodness, it just jumped out of my head. But we were like a block off the lake.
Yeah.
Get used to it.
Yeah, no, it'll come back to me. And in a brownstone, so many things that were different about Chicago and lovely and wonderful. Walking distance to Wrigley Field. You're in a 4-level brownstone with an elevator. And what was that all about? And a buzzer that you had to, when they buzzed you, can we come in, kind of a thing. The trash chute that was in the hallway. Huh? What? So it was quite a culture shock. But I love the city.
Yeah.
What a great city you grew up in.
Yeah.
I think it has everything New York has to offer, except with that Midwest ethic that, people are still kind of kind.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually lived at near Sheridan and Belmont. So
That's it.
Yep.
That's it. That's where we were. That's where we were.
Yep.
But we were. Belmont Harbor was a stone's throw away.
I could see the harbor from my window from my apartment, and I have to admit, I love Chicago so much. I miss it actually all the time. I would do shows in Chicago and then have to come home and walk my dogs at 2 a.m. right, because I've been out all night performing, and I'd have to walk them in the alley. And what a weird experience. And there's that beautiful lakefront up there, but it felt safer to walk them in the dark alleys
in the alley.
than it did to go into the park in the middle of the night. But I miss those nights, those 2 a.m.
Belmont. That was the street I couldn't remember.
Yeah,
I take that 77 Belmont bus out to O'Hare all the time and get out at the train station there before it went all the way out. And just a tremendous change because, that's about as foreign from being a Tampeño growing up here as you can imagine. But I would have stayed. I really would have. The winter chased me south.
Am I allowed? Yeah, I was going to ask, am I allowed to ask you all a question? What made you leave Chicago?
The winter.
The winter.
That winter, 84 to 85, it was one of the coldest winters on record. I think we had 44 days straight, I'll never forget it, where the temperature never got above freezing. It was 9 for a low and 16 for a high. And that little puddle of water that was heretofore water was ice the whole time. And it was just so cold. I never realized that the human body could experience that kind of cold. Now, that said, if we had American Airlines, if we had direct service from Chicago to Tampa at that time, I might have stayed.
Okay.
Because I needed to toughen up and just, But also, I grew up a baseball guy. And I already had my oldest son, so I knew I was going to teach him how to play baseball. At least that's what I knew. If I had been a saxophone player, I guess I would have taught him that.
Yeah.
And the season there is this long.
Very short.
Because you're training in the early part of the season in the gymnasiums. But again, I digress. This is all about you, not about me.
No,
but you happen to ask me, so yeah. The cold, my love, the cold.
Yes.
Yeah. So now you've gone through that experience out there because we need to get to your improv life.
Yeah, we got to get there.
Let's talk about what happens after that.
Yeah, so I signed up for an improv class at the behest of my friend who was like, you got diagnosed with cancer, let's go do something fun. I hated it. I was scared. Being a person with a disability, I was always, I don't want to be seen. And then something about that first show, the lights came on and I was like, ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba, I'm here. And what I say is actually I feel like something unzipped in me and my true self finally came out.
I love that.
Like I
Amazing.
finally felt like I could be myself, and it was okay to be seen and to celebrate my wit and my humor and my physical body and all of the things. And the stage is a place I get to celebrate that.
So you had that experience.
Yeah.
And then we're eventually, obviously, we overcome cancer.
Yes. Yeah. I continued performing. I got really into it. I was going to see shows all the time. I decided to sign up for a 6-week intensive in Chicago. I happened to be standing on the Blue Line platform in Logan Square where my family's from. And I'm looking down and I see the city skyline. And I just went, I got to go home. And so I went back and I talked to my ex-husband and I was like, I gotta go and I hope you come. And he tried.
But I gotta go.
Yeah, he tried. He stayed and, we like popped back and forth for a little while. But, unfortunately, that's not really sustainable. And I just dove into it and I took all the classes. I went to Second City, Annoyance, I.O., some of the smaller theaters. I performed around town. I realized people they weren't jumping to give me opportunities as a person with a disability using a forearm crutch. So I said, well, I'll just create my own. So I started doing that and I was selling out shows and donating all of the money back to nonprofits that helped people with disabilities because I didn't feel it wasn't money that I needed for me. It was about amplifying those voices. So
Giving back.
yeah.
Right.
And it was amazing. I mean, the lifestyle is so different. You sleep until noon and you get up and you write for a while and then you head to the theaters and you got to go shake hands and be seen so that when you want to get on the show, they know who you are. And
The political aspect.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know what I have to comment on this because I personally have worked for about a decade. I worked in the disability field. I grew up with a father in a wheelchair. And this is a thread that's run through my life. I understand the feeling, even though I'm sort of an extrovert, frankly. But I understand that people seek to be invisible, right? Because they stand out.
Yes.
And they get they get unwanted attention. And so it's so amazing that moment you're talking about where you decided, a person with a crutch, to get on stage and do improv.
Yeah.
I mean, wow, what kind of courage reserve does she
Well, she
have?
unzipped herself. She said it.
You unzipped yourself.
Yeah, not her
You
pants
literally
necessarily,
did.
but
I think I did.
Yes,
Yeah.
that was amazing.
Yeah.
Because I could visualize that as you're saying it, and of course you made the gesture with your hands as improv actors are wont to do. but I could see that happening, and here the flower comes out. The cocoon is falls away, and here comes a beautiful butterfly.
And in that sense, I guess the real you, it's like the phoenix from the ashes. The real you kind of transforms out.
Yeah,
right?
I think of it as that firefly spirit I told you about, that light and that brightness that was within me that I felt trapped in my own body, finally had an avenue where I felt like I could unzip and show that to the world. So, and I mean, you just get to be silly. It's make-believe, So who
It's the
doesn't
best.
love playing make-believe
I have
and
said-
being a complete dork?
Liz,
Yeah.
I have said this, and I'll take this with me when I go. The greatest job for people like us, I'm going to clarify because somebody out there is going to yell at the radio saying, not everybody, pal, but for people like us, and these trays are bothering me today, man. I have this lift going on. I'm straightening up my teeth with these Invisaligns, but you can really hear it today. People like us, the greatest job we could ever have, you do it in your tours. I do it with the Tampa Native Show and here on the radio. Liz does it in real time at the Commodore. And one day I'm going to be on stage with you, Liz.
I hope so.
Is that it's in us. And it's the greatest job in the world is to be able to play make-believe and to dress up. And how envious of these actors every Oscar season when you get to realize, man, these people have... And now, don't get me wrong. Timothée Chalamet had to learn how to probably smoke cigarettes and play a guitar and a harmonica. And so it's a lot of work. The depth and breadth of that kind of a performance takes an incredible amount of work. But how gratifying is it, man?
Yeah.
To be able to do that.
Yeah.
Speak to that.
Yeah, improv, the thing I love about that is all I need to show up is me and a willingness to be in presence and community with another person, to look them in the eye and say, you and me are here on stage together and we're going to create art together. And I don't know what's going to happen, but I've got your back. You've got mine.
Perfect.
Let's just invest in the moment. And so there's really nothing that you need other than courage and willingness. Those two
Justin
things.
reminds us of that. He reminds the audience of that every time that we go to see Salud and Happy Days, because he says, listen, some of it may fall flat, but some of it may be magical.
Yeah.
And we're all going to be here in the moment of creation together.
Yeah.
And in actuality, the fact that some of it may fall flat is what makes it interesting.
Yeah, spurs
to me.
you- and it spurs you
Because
on to do
if you
better.
if you're going to a show with some kind of comedian that
A scripted-
corporate level comedy club, and you're seeing Jerry Seinfeld, and it's going to be all kind of perfect, and this is like life is happening in improv.
Yeah.
And in fact, I was thinking about this when I was listening to your podcast, that life is improv.
Yeah.
I mean, every day we get up and improvise our lives.
You have to be
So
nimble.
What improv is doing is giving you a gateway back in to see something about yourself. That's how I see it. At least.
Yeah.
Jack, be nimble. Jack, be quick. And this is about the time when I'm going to give a station idea. You thought I was going to say, and he jumped over the candlestick, right? No. But let me just say that you're listening to WMNF, and we've got a little station ID for you.
Hi, I'm Angela Birdsong, and you're listening to The Conversation with Mario Nunez and Joe King Carter on WMNF 88.5 FM, Tampa.
Thank you, Angela. And if you'd like to get in on the conversation today, we're speaking with Liz Marcucci, a supremely talented, wonderful human being that is sharing part of her life story. You can call us at 813-239-9663. Send us a text if you're so inclined, 813-433-0885. Well, emails are always welcome. DJ@WMNF.org. And we'd love to hear from our listeners presently.
Yeah, I mean, we could do an hour just on improv, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Come on, man.
But
this is a 4-part show. You know that.
Yeah, but
Liz has got too much going on.
let's start moving a little bit more toward what happened when you came to Tampa with all of that.
Yeah,
How did you get to Tampa?
I'm going to back up a little bit. So, I left my whole life in Colorado and I pursue the dream, right? I'm chasing the dream and I'm putting all the work in and I'm doing 8 shows a week, something like that. I'm at Second City. I go through their advanced training program, which is called the Conservatory.
How old are you?
35, 36.
So not 22 or 26.
No, and everyone else they called me Aunt Liz.
Oh, no.
They'd be like, Aunt Liz has to drive us home.
Oh, no.
But they said I could hang. They'd be like,
Good.
Aunt Liz can hang.
She's cool.
But so we had 2 of our grad shows, and then the pandemic happened and everything closed down. And the 3rd show at the Conservatory is when you get put in front of the Second City producers and they start reviewing whether or not you're somebody they would want to put on their touring shows. So kind of the culminating thing of my whole journey in Chicago just kind of got ripped out from underneath me. And I had just gotten divorced. I was living alone for the first time in my life. And I thought, well, what do? I take my dog and a backpack and I drive down to hang out with my mom in Florida. And so I came down, I came down
As
here.
one is prone to do in a situation like that.
When you need somebody, your
Mom,
mom's
make me some
always
chicken
gonna
soup.
be there.
I need your help.
I ended up here, and I never went back. And improv was not a part of my life until about 2 years ago. Again, I took a break from it. It was exhausting. I was older. I did feel like, as someone with a disability and a woman and being older, that I was working so hard, and I just felt like I needed a reset to live my life, have life experiences again, because those life experiences then feed our artistic endeavor in improv.
100%
If I'm
correct.
just doing improv 8 days a week and only hanging out with improvisers, the only content you're going to see on stage is me talking about improv. Boring.
You got to go sell a house once in a while.
Yes, I did get into real estate for a bit.
There you go. A little segue there. We knew that about you.
Well, you have to pay the bills.
Yes.
And it's not unknown to the art world. It doesn't matter if you're an actor or a painter. I'm an artist. Is that you have to? Most people have a side gig. There's
Or if
always
you're
a
in a
side
band,
gig.
you're in a band and
Yeah.
you're going to be the next big thing.
Yeah, right.
A lot of times you got to, as they say, you got to feed the bulldog.
Yeah. So you're out with your mom. You're doing that stuff. You haven't quite come to improv yet.
No, I started.
How did that little big decision happen?
Honestly,
I'm gonna do this.
I was on the dating apps, and somebody told me they were doing improv, and he kind of gave me some information about where and who and stuff like that. And so,
And you had all those arrows in your quiver.
Yeah.
You knew that you could do this.
yeah. So I just started finding out and meeting people. I met Matt Walker. I think meeting Matt Walker was the first
Strong.
person. Yep, and Lauren Ross and Daryl Knapp and a few other people. And there were shows happening in St. Pete at the Mar with Dave and Heather Hamar, and they had a great little thing that was run by Justin and Kelly called Swimprov, where people could just put up some shows. And so we started kind of building into that. And then when Kelly and Justin and the rest of the guys, Kevin and John and Matt, decided to open up the Commodore, I was honored. I had tried to open up my own little training center, but I was mobile. I wanted to be able to bring classes to people so they didn't have to deal with barriers to access and coming to me. But as a one-person shop, it was difficult. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, this is one of the things about everybody who's in this world, whatever you want to call that, other improvisational people, actors, is that it has this kind of guerrilla aspect to it where they we're just going to go do it, right?
Yeah.
Speak to that a little bit.
But they teach us in improv, you leap. I don't know who said the quote. It's a famous improv, guru kind of person. You leap and you figure out the destination on the way down. And so I think that there is just something, we embrace that on stage, but I think improvisers live their life like that in many ways. As you just make a decision, you go all in, and you know that you're going to create something out of what you discover.
Can I step out and just say this now that it just dawned on me that improvisational actors who do it specializes in improvisational comedy. You have an innate skill that no matter what life throws at you, no matter what the day throws at you, no matter what the next 20 minutes throws at you, it's like that scene in The Matrix when Keanu Reeves is kind of bending backwards and the bullets are flying over him. You find a way to kind of make that silk purse out of that sow's ear every time.
Yeah.
Every time. Not to say that we're all perfect in that, and we're going to have down moments. And I can only imagine those quiet times are pretty quiet.
Yeah, well, also too, by the way, now that you say that, Mario,
Yeah.
Right?
I know that you're
The energy.
fascinated by neurology and brain science.
Yeah.
So am I. And the brain grows in certain ways. These things connect, these synaptic functions. It seems to me that if you are doing improv, in which you put yourself intentionally now, not by accident out in the world where you have a fender bender, but you're intentionally putting yourself in a place where you are now going to interact with people and you have no idea.
Outcome be damned. Outcome be damned.
Right. You have no idea what's going to happen. It seems to me that it would build neural pathways that people don't normally get to build.
Yes.
Don't you think that's true?
Yeah, I would think that's true. It's elasticity, right?
Yes.
I think that's the word that keeps coming to mind. And what's cool about it is that just because I've been doing this for 10 years and we all do this every day, anyone can step into an improv class tomorrow and start building this skill. If it feels like an area where they struggle, I had somebody who wanted to join improv classes because she struggled going on first dates, because she felt like closed and rigid and like she couldn't really open up, and she was kind of didn't know how to converse with people. And so that was her reason for taking improv. She took a couple classes, was like, okay, I feel great, and she exited. She got what she needed.
She got what she needed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah.
So it's so cool.
And listen, don't exclude me, you two smart people, thinking that I'm not a fan of psychology or anything neurology.
Were we excluding him?
Yes, well, you said
you kind of did.
Yeah,
you even
kinda
turned your shoulders.
No, I was because she said in the podcast. She said in the podcast she was interested in neurology.
Well, let me just say that this guy sitting right over here had a subscription to Psychology Today back in 1971 when I was 13 years old. So
Wow.
I've been like...
Are you a neuroscientist?
No.
Oh.
But I can play one on TV or on the radio.
It sounds like you're pretty good at it,
I
though.
will say this, though. Some people are interested, boys especially, are interested in the how. They build things with Tinker Toys, and they build things with they get their little sets out and they build things. I was the kid that always wanted to know the why. Mm-hmm. I was always more interested in the why. And the why is kind of a different take, right? And so, yes, to all things neuropsychology, neuropsych. Listen, nobody's getting out of this thing alive, but we can try to make ourselves as happy as we possibly can whilst we're here. And if you can sprinkle some of that magic dust on other people around you, that's the gift.
Yeah.
That's the gift.
Yeah, make life better.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Okay. So let's take, we can return to that, but let's talk a little bit about improvisation and people who are differently abled or disabled.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what you're doing in that area.
Yeah, so I got to Chicago, and there's tons of artists and improvisers on the disability, mental health, and chronic illness spectrum in that city. However, the opportunities for access, if you think, let's say I'm creating a show, and I'm just me, I'm putting it in a black box theater, I'm scrambling to get auditions in a location, and my friend goes, I got an apartment building, you can run the auditions there, because it's that guerrilla aspect, right?
Right.
Well, I invite people to come out, open casting call. My friend in a wheelchair goes to show up. It's a walk-up building. They can't get access to the audition. Mm-hmm. So a lot of these early opportunities are not held in locations that people have access to. Or let's say you struggle with moments of depression that make you feel like isolation is what you need to get through that moment of depression. So you have to cancel an audition. Well, you're less likely to receive another offer to audition from those folks, not because you're not talented or because you wouldn't be able to come through, but because they perceive you as flaky.
It's not reliable.
Mm-hmm. But it's medical, you know what I mean? And people I don't think should be, I don't want to use the word punished, but I'm going to punished for their abilities getting in the way of them to have access to opportunity. So I created a show that was called Who Dis, which stands for Who's This Disabled Person.
Love that.
And I invited people, and I didn't ask them what they did. I just said, come on the show. I don't care what you do. You could sing, you could dance, you could draw, you could do comedy, you could do improv. I just want to celebrate you and your art. So they would come, and some of it was bad.
They whip out that old Jewish harp and What are we doing here? What are we doing, boys?
But I didn't care because it was people being able to 100% express themselves
Correct.
in a supportive environment. And then at the end of the show, I would interview them about what it was like to live with a disability or chronic illness or mental health condition and try to navigate the performing arts scene. And those conversations like brought tears to people's eyes. The audience couldn't get enough of it. At the end of every show, they'd say, oh yeah, the performances were great, but those interviews, that was amazing. So then I created a podcast just to kind of hone in and focus on that.
And what happens in that? I mean, what typically do you do on the podcast?
Oh, I just interview them and we talk about, I don't force them to share what their connection is to the disability community because I just believe, I believe them and I know them. But we talk about what it's like to be themselves as an artist because I think you said something earlier and I don't know word for word, but when we share our narrative, we connect with others.
Absolutely.
And we build a bridge for relatability. And I think a lot of people, when I would go out on stage, I told this on that other podcast, I go out on stage with my crutch and I could feel the whole audience clench because they go, oh my gosh, are we allowed to laugh at her? Their view of disability is so narrow. They didn't know how I was going to speak. They didn't know if I would be funny. And then the second I would start speaking and hosting the show in the way that I do, they would relax. And
you can feel that from the stage.
You can feel it.
Yeah.
And I took that every time as a win for creating a new perception of disability in somebody's mind. And the more often we can do that, the less discrimination I think people with disabilities will face.
Joe, can I go out on a branch here and saw it off behind me and say that if the world were filled with more Liz Marcucci's, man, what a great world it would be.
Certainly would be, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
in terms of personal strength and in terms of contribution.
The other thing that because Joe and I are good pals and, we share that energy. We share that that same simpatico, that we attract that here on the show as well.
Yeah.
And the one thing that usually, if we do 10 shows, 9 out of the 10, the term empath or empathic comes out because that's what we find the most endearing, the most charming, the most attractive people are empaths because they get it, man. They know what it's like to journey through this life, sometimes in pain, but that develops that empathetic skills, and we're just so grateful you're here with us today, Liz.
Oh my gosh, I'm having such a great time.
Thank you.
I think that's a great point, Mario, and I think that in a reverse way, I would say that many of the world's problems are because of lack of empathy. Right now, I think he's probably in trouble somewhere, but Russell Brand, the comedian, the English comedian, who's talked a lot about addiction. Addiction is a big issue for him, and I'm very interested in addiction. And his position is that connection is is the real thing that will rid you of your addiction. That all addictions, whether it's alcohol or food or drugs or money or whatever it is,
it's a cry for that connection.
There is there's a hole that's created, and the reason for that hole is you're not connecting to people. And I think when you look at human civilization from tribes forward, tribal life, it's all of the stuff that we do, these ceremonies and these rituals, it's all about trying to connect. And the irony of our world is that I guess people thought that having a portable phone with you all day that has the internet on it would connect you with the world.
It's doing just the opposite.
And it's doing the opposite. And so what is interesting is that's what I was thinking about when I was listening to your podcast, is that connection. This is another vast area of connection, because who would have been spending a lot of time? Has there been a lot of time spent on people with disabilities doing improv?
Some people really have focused on it, and I think that it happens more and more, and it's about...
But aren't you sort of pioneering a little bit in doing that?
No, I wouldn't say that I am.
Okay.
I don't want to take credit for that. I reject that. What I did...
We tried, Joey. We tried.
Yeah, really.
What I did, I will say in a singular sense, was I entered a community. I saw that it didn't have space for me and people like me, and I said, well, I want to create more space. There have been diversity programs at theaters running for a long time, and they will continue to run after me. But in that moment in time, I thought, I want more of this. partially just selfishly so that I had a space.
Right.
And so by me creating a space for myself, I open the door for others. But I don't think it's different. Minneapolis has a wonderful community. And I just think diversity is important. The more people you're on stage with, the better the stories are going to be.
I think there's something to be said for the northern climes as it relates to that connectivity and that sense of community, because they have those long winters. The long winters force us indoors because it's just brutal to be outside. And so finally, this is why our Canadian friends to the north are so nice. This is my opinion. I'm opining. So it's our radio show and we can do that. Is that because they spend 8 months of the year, 7 months of the year holed up inside, and finally when spring breaks free, they jump outside and go, "Hey neighbor, how you doing? I haven't seen you in a long time. How you been?"
Right.
And then they start to do things in a communal sense, outdoors with each other, and it brings everybody together. I'm just thinking that's why Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, to a great extent, they have those communities where, man, the winters are hard and you got to hunker down.
Well, they always have better opera.
No, and they got better food and they got better entertainment.
The opera here, that's okay.
Joey, I want to say something because we're getting right there up against it. Something that Justin said when he was here, and this will take us to the conversation about...
Should we say who Justin and Kelly is?
Please do.
Justin and Kelly are two of the 5 owners of the Commodore Theater at 7th in Nebraska.
7th in Nebraska, that's
7th
correct.
in Nebraska. And they're wonderful people. They live in New York, but they've decided to invest in this community here. And so they split their time to try to help us build a strong, thriving, supported, diverse improv community.
Yes. And they've been on the show before with us, and they do a show once a month called Salud and Happy Days, which is a tribute to Tampa history. And they solicit for a Tampa monologist, a Tampa storyteller to come on. Joe and I have both been graciously invited to do the show, and they're going to do one this Friday as well. Thank you, sir. This Friday as well with Tyler Martinolich.
But you were going to say about Justin.
Yeah,
Justin.
Sorry. No. Justin said something here on the show that I wrote it down. I don't have any tattoos, but I may get this tattooed because it's that impactful. He said that, speaking about the nakedness one feels when they go out there to do improvisational comedy with your mates, your professional mates, is that these two things you almost have to have. And the term is intellectual fluidity and innate charisma. And he said that, and it was like, that's it.
Yeah.
You know, those are the 2 skills that are going to take you through life with maybe the least amount of hassles. Intellectual fluidity and innate charisma. You have it, you don't. Talk a little bit about what you think about that comment.
Yeah, the first thing I want to speak to is I don't feel like I go out on stage naked. I think that is the most clothed and supported I ever feel, because we're talking about connection.
Yes,
it's to me the moment I step on stage is I go, oh, this is a moment where I'm fully in community with another person, and so I feel like I have all the support in the world. The intellectual fluidity, yes, you have to. But those are skills that can be learned. I don't think that has to be something that we're born with. But improv, all the games we play and the classes you take and the exercises, they help you expand that. And
because you're juggling ideas, you're juggling
right the whole time.
Right.
Fluidity.
Yeah. I mean, innate charisma. I'm right here. You know, I got it.
Right.
I think you do have to have it, but I don't know. I think there's some awkward people I've met that maybe don't have what you would traditionally call charisma, have exactly what you need to be on stage and be a good improviser.
Can I help you with that? You know what? I think I've come to this conclusion over a long period of time. I think innate charisma, what makes a person charismatic, is not some special magical thing that's, you've got like in my family, we don't have any eyebrows. It's not because we don't have eyebrows. Or you have whatever. It's because there's something about their energy that allows them to be themselves. I think a person who can be really authentic is the most charismatic person of all. That's my opinion.
You say that, and you did this motion gesturing from your heart outward, and I thought they share their light with the world.
They share their light with the world.
That maybe would be my definition of charisma.
Yes, I think recently it was all over the news with Gene Hackman's death. Well, everybody every interview you saw streaming through the pop media about Gene Hackman was, God, this guy just shared himself and he was loving with everybody. And this is what happens. It's just being open and giving
and sharing your gift. We've got a caller that we need to get to.
Oh,
And
boy.
this happens from time to time when we have a captivating guest that everybody just wants to listen and nobody wants to disrupt the flow of the conversation, which again, at the risk of repeating myself, is an amazing title for a podcast. Let's see who's on the air. I don't know. It says, I guess, is your name Orlando, sir, or perhaps that's where you're calling from?
I'm calling from Orlando. My name is Eddie, actually.
Eddie G, that's you, Eddie.
Your name is Eddie, actually?
Eddie, actually. Who's on first?
Eddie,
Naturally. Hey, so Eddie, do you know Liz?
I do know Liz. I've performed with Liz many times. She's an incredible performer, and I've been loving listening to your conversation.
Are you still with us? Listen, take that from the top. Take that from the top because we had to make a little adjustment in the headset. We want our guests to hear you and hear your loving commentary. So please, take two.
Oh, thank you. Take two. Yes, I have performed many times with Liz. Liz is such an incredibly talented and funny performer who does all the amazing things she talks about, makes an inclusive, welcoming space for people who come to play, whether first-time or long-time improvisers. But something I want to share with folks who are listening who may, and I'm so grateful you two spend a lot of time talking about this art form that I love so dearly, that it is like this space of empathy and connection. But I want folks to know this is also really funny and a lot of times really dumb and stupid.
Yeah.
And I think that's also what can make it great is just, it is that silliness, which I know you talked about. And it just can be so funny. And the amount of times my sides have hurt because something Liz has said or another improviser has said. Like, I just want to emphasize that for folks who are listening. And the last thing is I'd love to donate. Can I give you my credit card now? Should I read it out? I've got it ready.
Eddie, we would love to take that from you. Listen, anything you give us, it will be graciously accepted. I tell you what you do. Excuse me. Go to WMNF.org. Mm-hmm. And then the three letter moniker for our show is CON for conversation. If you'll make sure that you just drop whatever you want to drop into that box there, just make sure that it's designated to go to the conversation. Eddie, we love you, man. Thank you. Will we see you this Friday?
You will see me this Friday, and the feeling is incredibly mutual.
Thank you, buddy.
Soon, buddy.
And
Thank
Eddie, listen, the amazing Eddie Geller. I want to just say that you're absolutely right. You will laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh. Thanks for pointing that out to us.
Thank
because
you, Eddie.
I think we kind of jumped over that.
Yeah, we went into the heart
Yeah,
centered.
you guys are totally right about the hard stuff. It's all incredible.
Thank you, buddy. We'll see you soon. We love you. That's the great Eddie Geller. So, yes, and it happens in real time, and it happens organically, and you step out there, and you've got your mates. I talked to Eddie a little bit about this. Liz, I guess we got a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
When, and Kelly Buttermore's watching us on
Oh, hi,
Facebook Live.
Kelly.
Kelly, we love you. Thank you for watching, Kelly. We'll see you soon. When you go out there, it's like anything else. If you're playing shortstop, and we'll do a baseball analogy, you've got your favorite second baseman you like to turn that double play with. You know where he's going to be. You know where he knows where you're going to be. There's no that nonverbal communication that goes on. Do you have your favorites kind of when you're in the wings and, it's okay to say.
I'll say
Or do you have better chemistry with some than others?
Yeah, I'll say I have people I trust more because I know them more, but I wouldn't necessarily say they're favorites.
Got you.
Because some of my favorite shows are when I perform with somebody I've never performed with, because that feels like ultimate discovery.
And another
because
growth
I don't
moment.
know. I don't know what's going to happen.
That makes
Um,
sense. That's so good.
But
That makes sense.
I want to speak to what Eddie said. Eddie and I did this really silly scene where we had both punched each other in the face. And our jaws were off kilter, and we were mumbling, and it was a 3-minute solid scene of us both talking as though we had unhinged each other's jaws. And I laughed so hard. Like, I broke, which is when we laugh on stage. I could not stop laughing every time he started speaking, and all I wanted was for Danny, who plays with us, to come and wipe the scene, and he wouldn't do
Wipe it,
it.
wipe it right across the stage.
And it's silly. You just get to be free.
Well, and I will say this, that if you're there in the audience, all of it is experienced in that moment, and it is hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
The actors have to, I don't know how you guys don't break more often, because sometimes when they come at you and you don't expect that, you've got to react to it, but at the same time, once the giggle box is turned on,
Oh, yeah.
you're done.
Yeah.
You're officially done.
Yeah. So what happens now with Who Dis?
I think
In a couple of minutes left. Yeah.
It's on hold. I had a really lovely sound engineer, but he had a family, and his time is spent with his family. So we'll see. If I can find another engineer to do that work for me, because I'm not inclined in that way. That is not my skill.
I see.
We'll revamp it.
Yes, I understand. You do have a website. Would you like to share that with us?
Yeah, it's just
Please.
my name, LizMarcucci.com.
LizMarcucci.com.
How do you spell that, by the way?
LizMarcucci.
Cucci. See you later.
Sono Italiano.
So did you grow up eating at Nana's house on Sundays and having pasta? And did you do the traditional things?
We did get to have Chianti with dinner.
Oh, that's wonderful. We didn't even talk about that. So, listen, the opportunity may have to avail itself that you might have to come back and do a part 2 with us some point down the road. Just kind of give us an update on what you're doing, especially if you have something that you've hit upon that you want to share with the community. We know how much you love the Bay Area, and we know how much you love to work with, the folks of all stripes.
Yeah, Tampa's home now, so I would love to.
Tampa is home for all of us. Go ahead, Joey.
Yes.
Who's coming up? We got a little bit of time.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you so much to Jessica Green, the original OG on our board.
Yeah, Jessica does a great job.
Joe Remo from Kokomo is at the phones waving at us, and then next door I see the amazing Jim Bannon.
He's shaking you off, man. He's saying, no, it's not me. It's not me.
There he is. The amazing Jim Bannon, who is the master of musical mirth for the afternoon. So please stay tuned.
That's a lot of alliteration. Liz, we love you. Thank you so much. We're going to see you this Friday. So
Yes.
you'll be there.
Yeah,
we'll be there early.
Everyone at the Commodore says hi, by the way.
all
They're
liquored up and
texting me
ready.
right now. Oh, yeah. Well,
We'll
maybe
be
I'll
ready.
get liquored up, too.
Listen, thank you all so much. We hope that you've enjoyed this show. My name is Madio. That's Joe. That's Liz. You're listening to WMNF Tampa.